Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of College Football UK. As ever, I am your host, Fletch. This podcast is brought to you by the AAW Network, and joining me this week after a couple of weeks off, it's Gary. How are you, sir?
Afternoon, boys. Welcome back. Good to be back with you.
Lovely, lovely. And after holding down the fort 2 weeks ago, ever so excellently, may I say, we've got both Nick and Sam. Thank you so much for a couple of weeks ago, by the way. The Appalachian State episode was fantastic. How are you both as well?
Yeah, good. All good.
All good. Yeah, been busy the last couple of weeks. So fighting flu one week and just so busy the other week. But yeah,
Yeah.
rocking and ready to go.
Lovely. Well,
Fletch, before we start, did
yes,
Mrs. Fletch have a good birthday, buddy?
yes, she
That's
did.
the important thing.
Yeah,
Excellent.
she did. She did. She had a lovely birthday and obviously says thank you. So, big thank yous for the birthday wishes on air, which was lovely. Um, so we'll get straight into it pretty much with a bit of news, and then throughout this episode we've got a couple of topics we kind of really want to cover. We're finally, after about 3 years, we're going to cover this year's freshmen. And the freshman class of this year and the players that you need to watch who are just entering college football. As Nick so eloquently put 3 years ago, we've spoken about the players who've been on the way out. We've spoken about the players who were about to be on the way out. Let's talk about the players that we're going to be watching now for the next 3, 4, maybe even 5 years, and those who are going to be on our radar for this long. So that's going to be our main one. And then I want to talk. There's a bit of a tiff going on. There's always a tiff going on in the world of college football. There's a bit of a tiff going on at the moment, and there's a bit of what to talk about rivals, or what to talk about traditions that are in college football. And if they're centuries, over a century old, a lot of these traditions are, and how the current state of college football means some of those traditions are dying out or being taken off people, and lots of different things are changing. Before that, though, we've got news. I would like to believe, Nick, I know you've got a few pieces, there's some morbid pieces in there. Do we want to start on a light note before we get to the sad pieces?
I was gonna leave the morbid and the sad pieces to somebody else. My first question was going to be, where are you going for your news? Are you going to Nick's News? Are you going to Gary's Gazette? Or are you going to Sam's Supplements? As
Way!
Some
you know,
supplements.
Oh my God, Sam
that's what we
supplements.
went with the other week, wasn't it, Sam?
It
We
was, yeah.
needed something, so we went with in Gary's Gazette. You'll always have Gary's Gazette. Will always give out a little supplement, so it was Sam's supplement inside Gary's Gazette. So, but
It's like a
there you
Russian
go.
nesting doll of news.
You got
Um,
good luck. Good luck deciphering that lot.
I, I,
Yeah,
I think I want to go classic. I want next news, and
right,
then we can
okay.
throw to Gary's Gazette and the extra special pieces, and then if there is a supplement in there, then we'll go there. But I would like to start with Nick's news if we could.
Okay, well, I'll start light-hearted and we'll go with the college football EA Sports cover. Um, there is one floating about on our Twitter feed that is not real. I must contest. I've seen it. I'd love it, but apparently that is a fake. The real college football cover has Ryan Williams and Jemiah Smith on. Um, that's a
Is,
lovely photo.
is this the real one?
This is the real one. If you're watching on YouTube, by the way, you'll be able to. If you're not, go and check the CFB underscore UK on Twitter or UK underscore CFB on Instagram. All the links are in the description of the episode to the images to these covers. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah. So the two players fighting the EA Sports curse this year are Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. Um, I don't know whether the curse does actually stretch to college football, but and
Certainly
then
worth for
again, if
Donovan Edwards last year.
Yeah, I say Donovan Edwards was the main guy, wasn't he? And he got screwed.
oh, there you go then.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for that one.
Um, so that's a bit of light-hearted start. Um, Texas and Ohio are disagreeing at the moment, just about when to play their game. Not what day, not what time, but when, where, and whether they can play it on a Sunday, because they want to Ohio State are trying to capitalize on the fact that that is the last Sunday before the NFL starts, so they'd like to go prime time Sunday. Texas want to stay at Saturday lunchtime. Notre Dame and Miami are already on Sunday, so they're trying to sort of fit around the big game that is Notre Dame and Miami, and they're just trying to find a decent spot to play. Ohio want one, Texas want the other. They're throwing mud at each other over the fence. So,
Yeah. Sam, have you got much? Has been much said about this in the Texas space that you've seen?
Not really. It's just handbags between officials, and there's been a lot of like stuff around it, like saying how Texas are scared to play Ohio in prime time. It's like, really, neither team knows how they're going to come into this season. Just wind your neck in. At the end of the day, if it's been given as prime time, if it's been given as a time of noon on a Saturday, just stick with it. What does it really matter? And at the end of the day, it's like, Notre Dame are already on at that time, so why are we trying to then compete with Notre Dame? Not that it's a
exactly. Who
big
wants to
game,
compete
because
with Notre Dame?
Notre Dame would just get dwarfed by
No,
this game.
Northern
But
Illinois might want a word.
yeah, so so we're allowing. I think we should be staying at noon to allow for the lesser game to get its spotlight on the Sunday.
Wow.
Trash Talk start on 28th of May this year. Just mark it in your calendars, folks.
While we are on the mighty Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish have agreed to play Wisconsin next September at Lambeau Field. This game should have been played in 2020, but was cancelled due to COVID. It's a two-game neutral site arrangement. So they played the first game in 2019. The second game should have been 2020, but it got put back. So it'll now be beginning of September next year, and it will be at Lambeau Field.
Lovely. Lovely.
So you're going to make sure you're there at Lambeau Field.
I'm going to try. I mean, I
It'd be
don't know
remiss
whether...
of you not to, Nick. I mean,
I know, I'm certainly going to try, but it's only the third time that Lambeau Field will have held a college game. So
Can you name,
I'm going to
name the
try.
other two? I'm not asking because I know the answer, by the way. I'm just asking just to...
I was going to say, is this one of the like, Fletcher's pop
I-
quizzes?
Well, the other one would have been, one of them was Wisconsin, or the second one was Wisconsin. The first one, I saw what it was, and I thought to myself, that'd be a good quiz question. But I bet Fletcher's got it already, and I didn't know the answer.
Go.
I thought that'd be a good, but I bet Fletcher's got it already, so I didn't even know the answer. It was something college. I know that.
I have not got it. So if you want to throw to Gary's Gazette or any other bit of Nick's news, I will get that up over the next couple of minutes.
Gary's Gazette. What have we got? What have we got? What have we got? What have we got? So, light-hearted news. I'll go with a bit more light-hearted for the Indiana Hoosiers. They have announced the return of the beloved 1960s mascot. The Bison is coming back.
Oh,
there you
lovely.
go. See, there you go. It was a mascot from 65, 69. It will be back for this year. But you didn't see that news coming, did you?
I did not.
There's actually been, well, including this one in 2026, there'll have been 4 games.
Sorry,
at
Sam.
Lambeau Field.
Saint Norbert and
versus
Fordham in
Fordham.
1983.
And
Don't
St.
ask me what the
Norbert,
score was.
it was 18-9, and only
Wisconsin
842
LSU
people
was the other
attended.
one.
But also St. Norbert versus Fordham University in 1982 was the very first one. So they played twice there, and it was 14-10 to St. Norbert. St. Norbert are 2-0 at Lambeau Field.
There you go. Maybe that's the way forward. Get the Shamrock Series and you're winning.
The first Division 1 football game was 2016, which was Wisconsin against LSU, which Wisconsin won.
And the only other bit of news I had is the same one that Fletcher's got, that he's can't wait to
Share with everybody.
is the SEC commissioner and him
Yeah,
saying his opinion.
I'll bring that up in a second. So, I do find this really interesting. So the first game out of the St. Norbert Fordham University versus Fordham University, the 14-10, 20th of November 1982, the attendance was 5,119. I think a year later, on the 19th of November, it was 18-9, and the attendance was 842. The people of Green Bay did not get a good taste in the mouth of college football after that after that first one.
842. It must have been echoing. Wow.
And then obviously the 2016 game between LSU and Wisconsin attracted 77,823.
Those Tigers do travel well, don't they?
So yes, they do. But I think that's interesting. That's quite funny. I think one stand would have had would have had more people combined than the other two. Sorry, combined. In terms of attendance, which is interesting.
St. Norbert is St. Norbert Green Knights. I thought I'd just have a quick look at who they were. They're a Division 3 team.
Yeah.
They're located in De Pere, Wisconsin. I was just wondering if they had I like to see if they have an interesting mascot, but the wiki page does not have their mascot on it, so I cannot see.
And I believe Fordham University was Vince Lombardi's alma mater, it also says. Hence why I think there was a link there.
That would be why they probably played
as
there,
well.
No.
So I'll get the really sad news out of the way first, and then we can move on. Really sad news coming out of Penn State and Ohio State the other day. Hang on one second.
Just before you do share that, the guy that just as a bit of the lightheartedness, the St. Norbert Green Knights mascot is Sir Norbert the Green Knight, also known as Norby. So Norby Knight.
Norby Knight.
Love it. Yeah, in the first bit of really sad news, former Penn State and Ohio State wide receiver Julian Fleming has been seriously injured in a fatal ATV crash that unfortunately his girlfriend did not survive. I'm unsure of any updates since this thing happened. It is clearly an extremely difficult situation and very horrible situation. So the thoughts of everyone, obviously, with his friends and family and his girlfriend's friends and family in particular at what is probably an extremely heartbreaking time. In other really sad news, today it looks like, today Baylor University announced that their 18-year-old defensive lineman Alex Foster has died at the age of 18 after a shooting in his local area back home. And again, extremely heartbreaking news, and obviously the thoughts again of everyone here with his friends and family and the guys over at Baylor and all that sort of stuff. And it is just two of the worst pieces of news that you could possibly, I think, deliver on things like this. But that's about all I think we're going to say on him, and we'll move on to the next piece of news to try and to get us out of it. So the SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey, has been running his goddamn mouth, and he can't stop running his goddamn mouth about the state of college football and how much the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC and the Big 12 want to continue to push and move further away in front of all of the G5 schools, D2, D3, FCS, and all that. He has come out with quotes that include, I have people in my room asking me, why are we still in the NCAA? Is, I think, the number one quote that's come out of it. This also comes as it's. Oh, sorry, no, there is actually one other piece of news, by the way, but we'll finish up. We'll finish up this bit first. He's also been making comments about how the Power Four, Autonomous Four have been having meetings over the last few months, all flying out to each other's headquarters and commissioners, and there's a lot moving forward in the Autonomous Four side of things, as they continue to push forward. Now, what do we do right now if the SEC commission is coming out and saying, why are we still in the NCAA? I don't know.
Don't know just yet, but we might have a mini series coming up that can kind of share some light on that, don't we? Just.
I was going to say he needs to listen to our next our mini series coming up. Going on, we're giving the solution.
Yes, so that's it. We know. Well, we all know already, Greg. We know you're out there listening. We've got coming up over the next 4 weeks. We have 4 episodes of a mini series that we're running throughout June where we're going to reinvent college football, and we have some wonderful guests already lined up and planned to go through it with us. Next week, we're going to be discussing, like, how the hell did we get here? And we're going to talk about how we got to the point where Greg Sankey is sat in a room saying, I don't know why we're still in the NCAA. Post-apocalyptic style, a number of schools have broken away from the NCAA and created their own league, and we're going to reinvent college football from scratch, or as close to from scratch as we can. Again, we have wonderful guests with us every single week to help us do that. But again, just to kind of get something out of this, where do we go with Greg Sankey at the moment? Does Greg Sankey need to kind of hold his horses a little bit? Is it one of those shoot off kings, do what you need to do?
I think he's just all hot. He's all hot air at the moment. That's all it is. He's trying to. I think for me, I think he's just trying to gauge how much popularity is behind what he's saying and how he views it. Because obviously, if there's going to be a lot of people that don't back it, it'll all just drift away. So I think at the moment he's spouting his mouth because he knows he can do it.
Yeah,
and just trying to gauge people's opinions.
I think it's a lot of it's a lot of bluster. It's a lot of hot air. It's a lot of pre-season nonsense to see if he gets any hooks, if he's got any support, if he's got any, backing there. And if anything comes of it, that's when it will get really interesting. But I mean, he's doing his job, right? He's getting the SEC in the news. He's getting people to think about it. He's getting airtime, and he's making sure that the networks get their money's worth.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you're following college football and you're not talking about the SEC, what are you talking about? UNC and Bill Belichick and his issues and the down, it's NIL money that they're trying to sweep under, so they're trying to put all the bad stuff away. They're trying to get everyone to focus on this. And it's just a case of watching, don't go looking what's going on behind the curtain. Look over here, not what's going on over here, sort of thing. He was saying this week about the playoffs and how, apparently there's interest from the SEC to extend the playoffs to 16 teams. Well,
yeah,
fine. I don't actually have an issue with that because lo and behold, in the mini series coming up, I've kind of done that.
Spoiler alert.
But so I don't have a great issue with him saying that. ESPN have just over the next 6 years, ESPN are paying nearly 8 billion, 7.8 billion to cover the playoff rights through 2031. So I get that, and I get you're trying to keep the SEC relevant. You're trying to keep them at the forefront of everybody. I get it, but you need to put a filter on your mouth and think before you speak, because some of it is just hot air.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing is, and we're gonna put this in a more succinct way, right? Now I know one person in this room is, but is anyone in this room a wrestling fan other than Sam? Because I know he is.
I can be, yeah.
I can be. Now I haven't watched wrestling in a long time, but I grew up on wrestling,
I
and the
haven't watched
great.
wrestling since Shirley Crabtree.
I'm gonna agree and pretend I know who that is,
You would
but
know who that is, trust me. Actually, you probably wouldn't, you baby.
um, to quote the greatest wrestler in my opinion of all time, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. What we're really saying here is, Greg Sankey, know your role and shut your mouth.
I'd have gone with it doesn't matter what you
Yeah.
think.
That's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you think.
That shows your age of The Rock, because The Rock has moved on from know your role and shut your hole to it doesn't matter what
Matter
you
what.
think.
Mm,
So I would have gone with it doesn't matter, but fair
I mean,
enough.
well,
I
to
get
be,
your point.
there are a lot of Rock quotes that could fill it. Shut up, bitch, is also another one that could just be thrown out there.
Mm.
On that note, though, with right, so I will say this one, by the way, if you want to keep the SEC relevant, do you know how you do it? Don't get bounced out the playoffs by Big Ten teams consistently, and don't have the only team that goes and represents the SEC in the semi-finals of the playoff be realistically a team that's just entered from the Big 12. Um, and that's no hate towards Sam's. That's no hate towards Texas, by the way. In fact, I'm kind of trying to show Texas probably a little bit more props here, that that's their first year in the SEC. You can't claim them properly. They're still a Big 12 team, right? If you want the Big 12 to be relevant, Georgia, they've not been relevant for 3 years now, since Georgia last won. Michigan and Ohio State have won it since. And they got bounced out the playoffs in embarrassing fashions last season. That's how you want to stay relevant. Go do it on the biggest stage in front of everyone.
yep. Let the football do the talking, not the conference mouthpiece.
So,
Interesting. I mean, I don't know if we've covered this in a previous episode, but I find it interesting how, the talk of them having the playoffs as strictly
Strictly
seed based.
seeded. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Don't like
So,
that. Don't like
no
that.
longer,
Don't like that.
you no longer have the
Top four. They no longer
priority
have the
of winning
divisional
the
prize.
division.
Yeah.
If you don't win your conference, you're essentially, it doesn't really matter.
well,
And
that was
I
the
mean,
news I
we've
was
had this
just about to drop.
conversations with the NFL that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you don't have conferences, if you don't have divisional wins,
Out for something. Yeah.
meaning something, then you may as well just scrap the divisions. And it's the same. If you're going to have it where everyone's seeded, just have one single table of all the college teams.
Yep.
yeah. Well, I would say that was the bit of news I was going to say. Just I forgot to mention that is they've moved now to straight seeding.
They'd like have they, or they're thinking
They
about
have
it. I
done.
don't think
They have done.
they have actually ratified it now. Have
Effective as of 2025. It's a 1 year trial on it. And that's why again Greg Sankey's come out and been like, I'm not sure. He doesn't know what the best playoff format looks like, but it involves 16 teams.
I get the
And
number. To be
it'd be
honest,
the
I get the
16
number
best.
16. It's money. It's get more pay. It gets more bums on seats. It gets more people watching it on TV over the holiday period. It's a perfect example and a perfect time for college to jump on that. I just
Extends the college season a bit as well, doesn't it?
It does mean that with the rookies coming out of college next season, if they're going through a 16 team, program of playoffs, etc., and then they go into the draft and then they hit their first year, the rookie wall may come sooner than it normally does in the NFL for some of those players because they do not get any time off. And they suddenly go from a 13 game season into like a full NFL regular season. And you hear that rookies sometimes late December sometimes go, Jesus Christ, we've still got 6 or 8 weeks left. How the hell do we continue after a massive year? That may come earlier next year with all of this going on. Something to
Yeah,
bear
Yeah,
in
but
mind.
if you're going from a 13 game season and then our 16 team playoff, so that's what, 4 games max. You know,
Yep.
you're only going to play 17 games max. So that's an NFL season anyway. So actually, working the other way, it could benefit rookies that they've just come out of a seven. If you've gone all the way late into the playoffs, you've just come out of a 15, 16, maybe 17 game season if you go all the way, into probably half of them won't play NFL playoff. So they'll probably only play a 17, 18 week season anyway. So it might, on the other shoe, sort of help the rookies going the other way. But
True.
the new format that Greg Sankey, when there was the new playoff format that has come out with the teams to be placed on their ranking rather than on the whether you win your conference and what have you.
Yeah.
Yes, the 5 highest ranked champions are guaranteed a position, but just looking at the playoff from this year, just gone, the last Christmas, if Notre Dame had beat Clemson, which they did, rather they would have then faced Penn State around earlier than they did. And if they'd done that, they'd have then faced either probably Oregon. They'd have probably faced Oregon, rather than having to face Georgia. Whereas Georgia would have faced probably Tennessee and then had to try and take on Texas or Ohio.
And that would have been that, but that game would have also been at Penn State, wouldn't it? It wouldn't have been in the neutral
No, it would have been
venue.
it would have been
It would have been at Penn State as well, so it brings a massive twist of.
I mean, it add that level to the game as well. Now that you're playing that at a home stadium rather than a neutral site,
Yeah.
how different is that
and
game?
it loops it back to the who gets to choose the seedings, and because we're back to is it based on your rankings? Then probably not, right? It won't be based on if a team goes 13-0 from the G5, they're not going to be ranked number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, are they? Because of strength of schedule again, and who deems which rankings are which.
I assume that with this new format, where it's you're ranked based upon your
record, right?
Your record, it gets rid of any of that, like conspiracy of.
It won't know, will it? We know it won't know.
No, but that's obviously where they've gone with the thinking is that because a lot of the time where we've questioned, like say Alabama getting in where they shouldn't do,
just because
or
they're Alabama
getting in where they shouldn't do. Now it's going to be a case of if you're not within the top 12 teams in terms of your record, you're not in the playoffs. And yes, there's probably going to be some controversies where you'll have probably 10 teams
10,
that are
12
all going
on
to be
one
on,
team
like,
or something.
Yeah, you might end up with where you've got like 10 and 2 teams, like at whatever the record would be. And then it's a case of how do they then decide. But to me, if you're going to go based upon record, it then goes to similarly to how you would with anything else, is you do it based upon who scored the most, who has the best points average, and make it as simple as statistically as possible, rather than saying then bringing in sort of, like you say, those subliminal, like subjective
biases
elements
stuff,
of this is the strength of schedule, which is all based upon, to be honest,
old men sitting in a room and
really.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting one how they work that one out if it does come in for it. As you say, it's a trial. It's something that they're mixing it up. They're catching the attention. More college football is never a bad thing.
And obviously, for those that have listened to our podcast, obviously we had the guy from the college football playoffs on the pod, didn't we? And he was explaining how this was all the changes that could potentially happen. So, it wasn't something we weren't going to expect, that this was going to be, there were going to be tweaks and changes. But
and
obviously
it's one of those that sort of the first, say, 8 weeks, 7-8 weeks of the season, you're looking at the table as as conferences and whatever else, and then as soon as halfway through the season, the playoff committee reveal their rankings, you don't then actually pay attention to the regular season table anyway, because it's like, what's the point? It doesn't count for anything,
all we want
because
is
it's
the
then
AP
suddenly
25,
the college
isn't it?
football playoff ranking that matters. And yes, you've got to keep winning to stay relevant in that. But then, so what's the point in following one table for 6, 7 weeks, only then to be told that table doesn't matter? You've got to follow this one.
Yeah.
But you know what?
That's something that always bothers me.
What always matters, and I think we should be putting this forward to the College Football Playoff Committee, is something we should do, is there should be one list that only matters all the time, all year round, and that is the UK and Ireland College Football Media Top 25, and that's it.
That does not get enough. That does not get enough eyes on it.
We get the
That
say.
does not.
Yeah.
We get the say. We get the final say. Our
And
vote should count.
I would happily stand up every week and ask why Ohio State were not in my top 25 and therefore, on law of averages, did not make the college football playoffs. I would happily stand there and take any bit of shit and just laugh because
I would say I found that so hard to do without being biased because I was
trying
like,
to be unbiased with it was
as
so
Notre Dame
difficult.
as Notre Dame kept winning, I'm like, can I push them up a little bit further? And I
Can
was
you be a
always
bit too homerism about
undervaluing them,
this?
and I was like, no, I'm not gonna. I was more harsh on Notre Dame than anybody else because I was like, I don't want to be seen as a homer. I don't want to be seen as this
That's
guy
why
just
it was
pushing.
easy. It was easy for me because we were always in the top three. So
It was
But
also
then-
easy for me as well because I could be completely unbiased with it last year.
well, yeah,
I'm gonna
and
say
probably this year.
And probably this year and the next year.
I was gonna say if FSU appeared at any point, we'd be like, for fuck's sake, Gary. Like, come on, man.
I don't think they were ever in there.
No.
Actually, I think they
But
were in for week one because
were,
people just
first couple of weeks.
thought week zero was a blip,
But
and
even
then
That'll
they
be the
soon
same with
quickly
Michigan as
with
well.
disappeared.
with
They
Michigan,
kept
I get
popping
that
up every
with
now and again, though, didn't they?
no, but
Anyway.
it was same with you though, Nick. I felt the same with Michigan, and that first couple of weeks where they're like, "Oh, you see, I only put Michigan at 12 because I didn't think they were doing this." Well, I only put them at. I thought they were maybe good enough to be 9, and I'm sat there going, "But I kind of put them at like 20
I
because
had
I'm
them at
trying to be
17.
overly critical."
Yeah.
And then I completely feel you there. Hopefully, we'll get it a bit better this year. We'll be a bit better at it this year, and hopefully, the ones who actually know what they're talking about kind of evened us out a little bit on it. So we'll move on. That was the
Just
news.
just on that, we'll be covering that in our show, right? Because by the time
course we
we
will.
record, it should be released every week, right? Just thinking.
Of course, obviously, we'll always make sure that, like as we did last season, we'll make sure that we kind of touch on the top 25. And I don't really want to for the first few weeks as well, though. Similar to what Brett
As
said,
just
by the way,
mentioned.
in the episode, was like the whole, well, for the first 3 weeks, it's still just your whole, well, I decided 6 weeks ago that Georgia are really good. So
Yeah.
we're talking about Georgia being top 2 because we haven't had enough data yet to start to put teams down or up or whatever. So I'll probably ignore that for the first few weeks, the AP one, but we'll always make sure that we are covering the UK and Irish media top 25 every week, even if we just mention it. But also make sure you're following. I don't know who's officially got it this year. I think it's still the touchdown. Always make sure you're following the guys at the touchdown and like your Ben Isaacs, your Oliver Hodgkinsons, your Simon Carrolls, Owen Jones, not Owen Jones, was it Owen Jones? Not spoken to the. It's been so quiet in that group
Been
chat now for
quiet,
so
and
long
then,
now. Names, but make sure you're following those guys as well because they'll keep the updates obviously coming throughout the season as well. But it's a great thing to be part of and a great thing to see us kind of doing that. But that's the news. Before we get onto the main topic, I want to do the quick. Head to the links in the description of this episode. Go follow the AAW Network. You'll notice that on our socials, little bit of a revamp. Things are looking a little bit different. I've been grafting. You don't know how hard I've been working on graphics this week. If I have to look at another graphic again for the next few, apart from that one that I did before with the College Football 26, I thought it was
which was nice. We liked that. We did like that.
It's hopefully be a much better at it. And obviously, it's the off season. We've got a really cool mini series coming. Come and talk to us on our Discord server. There are plenty of channels. There's loads of stuff going on in there. If you want to, if you are up for it, again, link in the description. It's free to join, free to take part. We'd love to have you. But the main story, Nick, you've been asking for us to do this for weeks. We want to talk college football 2025 freshman. You take it away for me. You take it away.
Yeah, I mean, you said it at the start of the show. We talk about how, I mean, for months it's been about the draft and all the college players leaving, and we had the little running gag about the college football podcast handing over to
Yeah,
hurdle the line. Here's our group, you know, and you're seeing already with the likes of um, PFF and ESPN, they've all got their, you know, this is the draft class for next year, and these are the players that are going to have a great year and what have you else. But no one's talking about the new guys that have come in. Nobody's talking about, the new cornerback that's, the fastest cornerback from side to side that anyone's ever seen out of high school. And it's just like, okay, if you enjoy your college and you want to get a running start on the players and you want to sit there and go, I know who I'm looking for this year. Because these guys might not play loads of football, but
Uh-huh.
depending on where they've signed and the position that they play, they probably will play. In the case of probably Bryce Underwood, he will probably play a lot of football this year.
I would
So,
imagine so.
but you might find that one or two of the other QBs that are selected, you know, have to wait. Texas Arch Manning's a prime example. He came in, he's had to wait his turn, and it's now his time. So a QB that goes into Texas has got to wait his turn for Arch Manning to finish his stint, and then it's somebody else's go. So these are the guys who you may see straight away, you may hear little bits of, but these are the guys you got to start learning about because they will be around for 4 or 5 years, and these will be the guys that you can, you know, grow
Get in your
with if you
Devi. Get in
like.
your Devi
Yeah,
squad. Get in your Devi squad, right, Sam?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I'm in a
that's a
Devi
hint of
too.
that you're in that Devi too. Are you? You in? Did we?
I'm in
Did you?
many.
You're in many
I'm
Devis.
in many. I've ended up in more Devies than I think normal leagues this year.
Ah,
Yeah. I joined a brand new league today. Well, I say a brand new league. I'm repeating one of my favorite charity NFL ones this year. We'll do the
which one's
Argyle
that?
Bowl again. We're gonna do the Argyle Bowl
Nice.
this year.
I heard that's run by a really dodgy commissioner though.
It is. It really, really is. Also, I've already signed up to the JTT Cup as well. Signed up to that one a few weeks ago, and
Good man.
the
Don't forget the Rainbow Bowl.
Rainbow Bowl. I literally again signed up to that just before I signed up to Argyle Bowl as well.
Nice.
All three of
Get
them
your
now I've signed
t-shirt.
up to.
Get your t-shirt.
Um, oh, I'm gonna make sure when I get paid next, I'm gonna add that in. Um, anyway, that's enough about the actual like NFL fantasy leagues that we're. But yeah, college football freshman Nick. Sorry.
yeah. So that's why I thought I'd bring it up, and you said it was a good idea. So
Yeah.
I'm not one to turn down a good idea. If someone says it's a good idea, we'll go with it.
So is there anyone? Right? Can I throw the one to start, please?
Go on.
I'll let so we can get it out the way for everybody. The number one recruit out of the entire 2025 class, the biggest storyline of late 2024 was LSU commit Bryce Underwood potentially going to flip to his home state of Michigan, his homeschool Michigan. He did that again, number one recruit in the entire country. Yes, I will continue to repeat this all throughout his college football career. That's got to be the biggest one to watch. And after a quarterback woes throughout all of last season and not knowing who was going to be who, and 1 minute this guy's in and 1 minute that guy's in and whatnot, he still might not land the starting role. Likelihood is probably he will, but he
He's not got
still
much challenge there though, has he?
might not necessarily land that starting role. Although there are a couple, at least veteran college players in there. He has to be, if he's starting, he has to be the one. The NIL money that Michigan are putting in on him, plus the fact that he's the number one recruit in the country, the eyes have to be on it. And again, given that Michigan's quarterback woes of the last 12 months, the eyes have to be there. And a bounce back season for Michigan under a promising freshman.
Mm-hmm.
He is a member of the 24/7 Sports 2025 Freaks list.
Woohoo!
When you've made the freaks list of the 24/7 sports list, you're
You're
doing
there.
well
You've made it then.
indeed. No, I mean, like you said, yes, top recruit in the nation, top recruit in his position, top recruit in the state. Cannot fault it. He's got the high school numbers to back it up, and I think it's all about where he because if he argument's sake, let's say he stayed with LSU and he didn't change to Michigan,
Mm.
he might end up being sat behind Grant
Marshall.
Nussmeier
He
this
would. He
year.
would have been. He would have been. There's
Yeah.
no other way about it.
So, you know, that's 1 year less that he's going to play.
Yeah.
Whereas if he goes straight to Michigan and he wins the starting job, which there is a very good chance he will, he gets that extra year of, we talk about it, we've talked about it with Arch Manning. And I know I come back to use him as an example again, but he's actually a really good example. He's only had two starts, or 18. He's made 18 appearances and two starts. The guy needs to play more. And when you're only going to be in college 3 years, some players, and then they jump
Yeah.
ship. Those 3 years, if you can play 30 games over 3 years, great, fantastic. But if you only play five, you haven't really put much tape down. You're not really that experienced. So maybe moving. Sometimes it's all about where you go as to what kind of experience you're going to get.
I think this is what's interesting as well. Like I was having a quick look at the overall numbers. I know we talked about it a while back, but in terms of sort of, I suppose, from this recruitment drive or this recruitment area of the, I suppose what we class as the ESPN 300, which is sort of seen as the rankings that they do in terms of 5-star, 4-star recruits and everything. Texas at the moment have signed 17 off the ESPN 300. Then it goes Oregon, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio, Auburn, Texas A&M in terms of the top few teams in terms of who's taken what we see as the best recruits out of high school.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, the team that's taken the most who signed the most was actually West Virginia and Washington State with 1657. But again, you look at the number of players that they actually took. They only took one player off the ESPN 300 with West Virginia, and 26 of their players were 3-star recruits. They had one 4-star recruit. So it just shows the gulf that you don't always need to have the most signed. And actually, that's where the quality comes in. But I do think that there are some interesting players that are going to potentially, like we say, if we're talking about like people who are probably are and aren't going to start. The guy who's number 2, we mentioned Bryce Underwood. The guy who was seen as like the number 2 ranked player is a guy called Keelan Russell, who has gone to Alabama. Now, the likelihood is he isn't going to start.
Nope.
So again, that's where we're going to see probably the opposite of Bryce Underwood, where Bryce Underwood's probably going to take the number 1 spot. Keelan Russell's going to have to wait at least a year to get a chance. And again, there's no guarantee just because he's a 5-star recruit that he actually then lands the job after. Is it Arnold leaves?
Ty Simpson.
Not Ty Simpson.
Ty Simpson, I think, has got the starting role for 2025 so far at Alabama.
I mean, it goes back, Sam, it goes back to what we said on the Appalachian State episode a couple of weeks ago. Some of these guys move from these top teams down to a lower team to get game time because they've spent 2 years at Ohio State or Alabama, who wherever, and haven't played enough, and they realize they've only got 2 years, 3 years max left, and so they have to drop schools and they have to drop to a lower school to get regular game time, and that's what we said by a lot of those players going into Appalachian State, coming from LSU and who wherever they came from, is that they were probably moving there to play more and to get more game, get more tape. And it's that kind of scenario. A lot of these players, yes, they've got 4 years, 5 years. They can probably afford to go to an Alabama and not play for a year. But
Mhm.
if you don't play for a year, that's you're already up against it, knowing you need to start playing on a regular basis. Whereas Bryce Underwood might have made a really good decision in going somewhere where he's going to play. Because
Mhm.
I I've always thought to myself, if I had a choice out of any college, if I was a top recruit, I wouldn't necessarily pick based on who the college is. I'd pick based on whether I was going to play or not, and whether I was going to play regularly.
Put
I
yourself in
I
the
wouldn't
shop window,
have
right? The whole point is to get
yeah
in the shop window.
I wouldn't have a fascination. Oh, I'm going to play for this school because it's Georgia or because it's Ohio or whatever. I'm going to play where someone's going to play me every week, and I'm going to get the chance to. And I think some players need to do
It's
that
fine.
more often.
It's finding that balance between game time and being on the,
Success.
the main stage and the success element.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
like I say, if you go somewhere, that's why I always think, like if, and I'm not trying to put down on any team, but I mean, you go to somewhere like an Auburn as a 5-star recruit, you're probably going to play way more games than if you were to be a 5-star recruit going to Georgia. It doesn't. At the end of the day, Georgia have that much talent. Unless you are world like light years above what they have now, which is very rare even at college level. The likelihood is you're going to be sat behind someone, maybe two people. So going to somewhere like Auburn, which just again mentioning Blake would be, um, he would be, he might not be, but I think from looking at again where he was sort of, you look at the teams that he was looking at, he did go and visit Michigan, he did go and visit Ohio and Notre Dame and Tennessee and the likes of Georgia, but he actually decided straight up that he wanted to join Auburn, and that's because the likelihood is it's because he's probably going to get a lot of game time at Auburn.
There's that, but I also want to kind of throw out there that at the end of the day, as much as you want to get in the shop window, but you need the best development for you. You need what's going to set you up the best going into the National Football League at the end of the day. Um, and I've been kind of thinking about this today. Would you rather be going into the league as a fourth round pick off the back of 3, 4 years at a very, very good school with excellent NFL level, NFL style, the best possible coaching? But again, you're a fourth round pick. You may be wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 on the roster, so you're not getting the most looks, you're not getting the most snaps, but you're getting an okay amount. Everything's about average apart from the coaching. But by the time you hit the NFL, you are so prepared for the NFL. You are so prepared for what the coaches are going to throw at you. It gives you an advantage over other rookies, and it gives you the advantage, and you assimilate better. And that's where I think maybe so having some of that fit as well has to come into it. No, I'm not going to win a. I'm not going to probably get into the playoffs very often at Auburn. I'm definitely not really fighting for a natty while I'm at Auburn. Maybe we will. We don't know what could happen in it's the next two
Unlikely.
years.
Unlikely, but
But
16 team
I
playoff. You
play
never
lot.
know. You
I
never
play
know.
lots of snaps. Or I could go to Georgia, start out as wide receiver 6 on the roster. Uh, I might actually be kick returner 3 on the roster. See if I can work my way up, and by the time, but it's out of those two, what's setting you up the best going again into the next level? You kind
Option
of like
one.
you say, there's that whole balance, and it's a juggling act to finding the right one.
I look if I can bring it back to Bill Belichick, when Bill Belichick took the UNC job, he said it's not about winning and how he would have a roster of players that are ready for the NFL and have a team that is prepared to graduate. And it's like that's kind of like the that's kind of like what you want from college. We discussed at the very end of the season on rivalry weekend, and we talked about how so many of these college players will never get to play again. Because there's no amateur, like we have Saturday morning and Sunday morning football that you can play at an amateur level over here. Once these guys have finished college, some of them don't kick and throw or pass again. They don't
Yeah.
get that. So some of them are there for the education, and that's it. They move on and they go and start real life. Some of them are good enough to play the sport and maybe see if they can make a career out of it, but they've got to work hard. And then there's those blue collar chip players that are guaranteed to have a career. If you are going to work hard, put yourself in the best position. Go somewhere where you are going to play. You know, I'd have no qualms in go if I was picking any college now. I'd have no qualms with going to UNC because the coach there is going to have you ready to go to battle.
Yeah. And again, you might not get your first contract might be fifth round money on a 4-year contract, and you might have to start. But again, you are ready for that challenge no matter
Yeah,
what. But to actually get onto the whole, to throw out another freshman, I think it's going to have a really good year. What for our Oregon wide receiver?
Orion
Carry
Moore.
more.
That's the one. Decarian Moore, top 5 recruit out of all of last year. We all watched Oregon last year, and they were a lot of fun on offense. Obviously, they've not got Dylan Gabriel anymore because he's now one of the
On a 78
400.
QBs at
Yeah,
Cleveland.
one
Yeah.
of the 400 in Cleveland at the moment. But one thing we know is how much fun wide receivers can have there, and someone of his talent, that is a very, very talented wide receiver, best wide receiver in the nation, going into college in Dan Lanning's system. I'm not saying it's Jeremiah Smith / Ryan Williams, but what I'm saying is very, very good wide receivers that go to the right system can go and have a lot of very, very nice success early on. And I think Decorian Moore is going to be one of them.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean he's still got to fight for his spot because you've
Yeah.
got the likes of Evan Stewart is still at Oregon, and they've got others like Gary Bryant Jr., Justice Lowe. So it's not like, and they also brought in Malik Benson, who's a senior. So it's not there's not a guarantee that he's going to come in and blow the world alight, but there is the possibility that he could. But again, like I say, as long as the system works for him, they have obviously Dante Moore as their QB this year. But also, I mean, Oregon's going to be a fun one to watch just generally anyway because they've also signed Mackie Hughes. Well, they've got him in the transfer portal, so he'll be a fun one to watch. But I know he's not a rookie, so we won't talk about him too much.
Yeah.
But I just think it's like this year, there's 22 5-star recruits were committed to different different colleges. 3 of those 22 went to Oregon, and then you had a whole host of teams that had 2. So Texas had 2.
Ohio
I think
State
Georgia
had
had 2. Ohio had 2. Michigan had 2. LSU had 2. And then a spattering of ones. Alabama had 2 as well. So, generally, it was fairly spread out, which I thought was quite interesting as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think one player I wanted to mention out of this list, obviously we mentioned Decorian Moore, but one guy that I wanted to talk about was, again, another interesting one who's gone to Oregon is Naeem Offord.
Yes.
Who is the number 1 cornerback recruit out of this year's. And he looks like a very interesting talent. Someone who can, he's 6'2". He's someone who I think could be a very interesting one to look in terms of 3-4 years down the line in the NFL. So should be interesting. And again, he's another one that you look at the cornerbacks in Oregon. The likelihood is he may not even get a start because they have some really good cornerbacks.
Yeah. Well, on those cornerbacks, did you have him as number one out of the three?
Yeah.
Number one out of corners. Well, I'm going to throw you DJ Pickett and Devin Sanchez. Devin Sanchez, who went to Ohio State, DJ Pickett, who went to LSU.
LSU.
I had both of those. I mean, you're talking 1A, 1B, 1C, but two of those that I'd be watching as well alongside him, and they're ones who I think are going to get more chance to start this year.
Hmm.
But
I'm not sure
there's a
about
really
Devin. I'm not sure
exciting.
about Devin Sanchez. I'm not sure if he'll get too many starts. But
DJ Pickett was the only 5-star recruit to go to LSU. LSU picked up only one 5-star recruit,
They
and that was DJ Pickett.
in November
no, they
they had a
picked up
couple.
two. They had Solomon Thomas, who's an OT, who's a
Yeah,
5-star recruit.
I've got him down as a 4-star.
I've got him as a 5. 17th and DJ Pickett 18th.
So, I think, like you said, there's depending on the position you play is also gonna affect how much you play as well, because those, you look at someone like LSU who've just lost their starting tackle, who walked on as a freshman and played every down. That's a lot of experience to replace. But I don't know LSU enough to know what their backup state is. Is their
Yeah.
backup tackle a junior or is he a freshman? And it's one of those that, if you're a tackle and you're going to LSU because you think, well, Will Campbell's moved on, you might have to wait for the other guy who's been waiting behind Will Campbell. And it's, I think there's a lot more to be said about picking where you can go and what you're going to do. But talking of wide receivers, and that Khalil Lockett that went to Texas, who the wide receiver, nothing. I don't have anything against the other guy, Decorian Moore, but Lockett to me seems like he could be the better option. He's just, he's got I think he's got a better frame, even though he's a few pounds lighter. I think he's built a little
Decorian
better.
Moore is a small, like quite small for a wide receiver. He's only 5'11".
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly the biggest. Whereas you've got, like, say, Lockett is 6'2", and yeah, there's a couple others around that maybe that are ranked a little lower that probably have a better physique
But
than him.
you look at Jerome Miles, who's the third best. Yeah, he's the third best wide receiver. He's weighing in at 215 at 6'3". That's a big frame for a wide receiver. I mean, that's probably why he's going to Texas A&M. To be fair.
Yeah.
Can I talk? I want to bring up a young man that goes by the name of Jutus Terry, who will be playing for the Texas Longhorns this year.
Where's he from?
He's from. This is where I was going with this. I only care about this because he's maybe from the tiny little state of Georgia, but he is from Manchester,
Manchester,
Georgia.
la la la.
He's a manny lad.
He's a mank.
He's a manny lad. So I'm interested, but I've said previously how I still think that no matter what happens in any given year, Steve Sarkisian puts out a monster defensive line that is disgusting, and he's hit the transfer portal hard. But Jutus Terry, 5-star recruit, is so good. I was watching a little bit of tape on him yesterday, and just he's very, very good. I don't know how long you can keep him off the field for.
Yeah.
If you do,
It's going to be an interesting one because they've, like I say, they've brought in a fair few. You've brought in Cole Brevard, Hero Kanu, and Travis Shaw in terms of your tackles. You've already got Ethan Burke, who I think is going to be really good this year. I mean, he's an absolute monster. And you've got Colton Vasek. But they've brought in a lot of D linemen because we lost a lot of D linemen. We also lost a lot of O linemen. But yeah, he's one that I think. I mean, again, his build is just insane. He's like, was he 6'6" or 6'5" or something ridiculous?
6'5", 263 pounds.
Yeah, like he's just a.
I mean, out of high school. That's just.
It's like you read his scouting report. I'll read you his scouting report. Right, reminds us of Jalen Carter. Well, that's not a bad player to remind you.
I mean, that's not a bad start, is it? Yeah.
No.
Right. Good verified size with excellent length, a broad torso, a stout base, and room to add more positive mass. Flashes excellent athleticism as a 5 technique, while also playing 1 and 3 technique spots along 2 snaps. Quick twitch, explosive with excellent first step quickness off the line of scrimmage, can go speed to power, value the ability as an inside pass rusher. Wins primarily with play strength and power at the point of attack, heavy-handed, and shows the ability to naturally move defenders off the line of scrimmage. Elite athlete with prototypical size and length. Displays outstanding raw strength and power. Are we talking about a human being or a freight train?
It's a freight train. Get him into your draft now. You know he's going number. He's going high
like
in the
a
draft.
In 3 years' time, he's my top. He's my top
5
top player.
Yeah.
He sounds like a wrecking ball. And the thing is, as well, you've already got Colin Simmons there for next year, who's an absolute monster as well, off the line. So, yeah, it's. I was just looking at some of the other ones we've brought in, and like Jonah Williams is another one who's the safety. I think he's going to be a free safety. I think.
Yeah.
They've got him down as a buck, but he could be an interesting one. Again, 6'3", 205 pounds, safety. So he'd be a fun one to watch. But again, probably won't get much game time unless he starts to stand out. But I think, like we were saying before about, going into the right system. I mean, Sarkisian plays very much an NFL hybrid with college football anyway. So he does get his teams ready for that sort of step up anyway. But yeah, I think who have we got as like the number one running back out of this one? I mean, I know the one that everyone talks about is Harlem Berry, but I just wondered what you guys had down as the number one, because
wasn't Davidson the one who went to Clemson? Thought he was pretty high up there.
Gideon Davidson, yeah, he's another one. I think both of those are quite similar builds, aren't they? 6 foot. Where's he gone? Where's the other guy gone? Harlem Berry, yeah, 6 foot, 185 pounds. But I quite like the is it a Kalen Deer?
Dear.
Who's gone to Alabama. He's 6 foot, 205 pounds. I imagine he's going to be an interesting one, but there's quite a few good recruits, I think, this year.
Yeah,
so I mean, really good ones to look out for.
Gary, you're Florida State are saying Chroma.
Yeah.
6 foot, 205 pounds, 4-star recruit.
Went to Florida. I mean, we lost a load of recruits over the absolutely shocking last year.
Third best running back.
Yep.
In the by position, but
He'll get playing time.
Okay. Have we got anything else to add on to the freshman chat?
Yeah, we were just talking about how Jutus Terry is a freight train.
Yep.
He's not a human being.
Yep. Like I said, watched a bit of tape. You aren't going to keep that man off the field for very, very long.
No, but if you read his scouting profile, he literally reads like a train.
I said I didn't read that bit. All I know is he's from Collyhurst.
Collyhurst.
Sounds so weird saying that, doesn't it?
Is he really? Is he really from Collyhurst? Is he not from Moss Side?
No, not Moss Side. He's from North Manchester side. A bit more around our parade way. Favourite food, chips and gravy.
See, I heard he was an Openshaw lad. I heard he was an Openshaw, Audenshaw lad.
He knocked about Openshaw for a little bit.
Oh, did he? Right, okay.
That's where he went. He went to school there. He went Manchester College.
Audenshaw boys, eh?
Yeah. Like I say, chips and gravy is his favourite meal. Can take the boy out of Manchester, can't take the Manchester out of the boy. It's just is what it is.
He's not going to get much chips and gravy out there, though, is he?
No, he's not. He's not. So yeah, but is that? So I take it that's it for the freshmen though at this moment in time.
It's very early, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
like everything else, these are stabs in the dark. Almost worse than an NFL draft sort of pick. These are guys are literally just walking into college. Who knows? They could get injured. They could never play. They could end up being complete whatevers, or they could be superstars. But these seem to be the names that you'll probably see more often than not going forward.
They're 17-year-old kids. They're still developing physically. They're still developing mentally.
Which is terrifying when you just read out some of the stats and they're still physically developing. 6'5", 280 pounds. It's like, what?
These guys are even in their own team in training, they're going up against 20, 21-year-olds who have been around the block. Yeah. These guys are going to take a battering over the next year or two as they learn how big the college level is compared to high school.
Yeah.
And it's the same for those college players that move up to the NFL. What's the first thing you hear about what them say? This game's a lot quick. It's a lot quicker than college football. It's a lot harder. Yeah, well, that's because these are men you're playing against. So,
well, I will just point people towards. There's one guy that I saw. It's Lamont Rogers. Is an OT going to Texas A&M. 6'7", 320 pounds. He's 17.
17.
just think about that for a moment. He's an absolute beast.
He's a unit. 320 at 17, and he's probably athletic as hell.
Yep.
I mean, even the four-star recruit tight end Ellis Williams going to Georgia, 6'7", 235 pounds. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Pro comparison, Darnell Wright.
There's one. Hang on, Juan Gaston going to Georgia, 6'8", 360.
Jesus.
Yeah.
You could probably
Aaron Dunn from Spanish Fork going to USC, 6'8", 290 pounds.
These are people I've always been in terms of build. It's the way I genetically. I'm very small, very slight. You could probably fit like 3 of me inside these human beings.
These are the guys, Fletch. These are the guys that when you turned up at school on your first day, these are the guys that you wanted to make friends with, so that they could keep you upright and keep you.
These are the ones you did the homework for. These are the ones you did the homework for, right? Yeah.
That's my seat. Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes,
whatever it is.
Hang on. Let me just.
These guys don't take the bus. The bus can't. They are the bus.
Yeah.
Right, Lamont Rogers.
while you're there?
Big-bodied offensive tackle prospect with college-ready size and a promising athletic background that shows in his functional athleticism in pads. Owns a naturally high center of gravity that can affect pad level, but consciously works for leverage. Also provides consistently active feet as a run blocker. Senior season showed precise engagement of multiple targets on a given snap in various occasions. He displays an impressive size athleticism combo. No shit.
It's an
Look up,
understatement.
Yeah.
look,
Still developing consistent hand placement and can be a more frequent block finisher, but does not present concerns in field demeanor. No, because he is literally the
He
entire
is the field.
field.
He is the field. He doesn't care.
Nick, look,
Jeez.
look up just before we go. Look up Juan Gaston from
Yeah.
the OT out of Georgia because he's 6'8",
enormous.
the 6'8",
He's enormous.
360-pounder. He
Okay.
isn't. He might actually kill someone.
He could
Do you
if he falls the wrong way. He could kill somebody.
Straight out of a Disney movie.
Do you
Gaston.
remember those Pepsi Max adverts from years ago where you had like early 2000s, you had David Beckham in and Rivaldo and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. There was always that one where
Yeah.
they went up against the sumos, the
Mhm.
sumo wrestlers, and it was just no matter
Yeah.
what they did, if they cut left, you just run into the sumo. Cut right, you run into it. You take a shot at anywhere, you're talking David Beckham, about like people who could place the ball anywhere they wanted, and it was just it. It's got to be like that. You everywhere you run, no matter who you are, no matter what technique you hit, whatever spin move you hit off the line, you're just running into human.
Well, imagine if you've got this Juan Gaston is your
Right.
screen blocker. Like he's
Gaston-
literally gonna kill people.
Gaston, professional comparison, Cameron Williams, Texas Longhorns. Right. Gaston, a mountain of a human with freaky movement patterns that can be absolute chore for defenders to work through or around. Owns by far one of the biggest frames in the 2025 cycle and enters college believed to be tipping the scales somewhere around 365 pounds. Can easily turn past pro reps into run blocks with his power and aggressiveness as he drives and dumps once clamped. Consistently wins in the run game, no shit, with his mass and length, as he will wall off targets on angle blocks or charge forward to engage assignments that are on the move.
Could you
Can get
imagine him in a
exposed-
Trent Williams sort of motion?
Can get exposed at times while on an island and struggle with speed
He
for a
is an
wide
island.
alignment, but displayed startling reactionary skills for a player his size.
What I would love to see is a guy like this being a running back. Just watching him like just dominate, like just
Hand,
completely.
just give him the ball inside the goal line. Just bam.
Yeah.
There you go. What happened? It's like the tush push.
I'm going to say
Just
touch push
literally-
with this gentleman. Touch push with him,
just
please.
give him the ball 2 yards out.
Ceiling at guard will be his highest, but warrants a look at right tackle in a power-based multi-run scheme. Early round of the NFL draft potential in an era where the mammoths are holding more and more value.
Whee! There you go. Remember the name. No one blocks like Gaston. No one runs like Gaston.
I mean, right. So I was about to say, if our transatlantic cousins knew how to chant and knew how to provide the brand new chant for players, I was about to say, if the Gaston from Beauty and the Beast song doesn't feature,
Even if it's missing a trick. Yeah.
I want to say, even if it's just a no one's slick as Gaston, no one's quick as Gaston, like if something
Well,
like that
certainly
didn't
no
come
one's
about,
as
it would
thick
have been-
as Gaston, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
But I was gonna say, but you got the no one fights like Gaston, douses lights like Gaston. In a wrestling match, nobody bites like Gaston, for there's no one as burly and brawny. As you see, I've got biceps to spare.
You're looking at the screen as if you're reading this. I know full
I
well
was.
you know this song off by heart because
I
you're
did.
like me. You're like me with a child that age. You know that song off
Yeah,
by
well,
heart. You
that's
don't
off.
need to look at your screen.
What,
for the
know
what
what,
was
lyrics.
quite
actually?
different? You know what was quite different? I was expecting it to be jumping and spinning on the fountain and putting in doing the actions as well.
Do you know what? Right, that kind of it, like she was never really as into like Beauty and the Beast and some of the older ones. But
The classics.
when I tell you, if there was someone that went by the name of Sven, and it was or something related to, I don't know,
Frozen.
Frozen or Moana
Tangled.
or Tangled, now I would be right in my ballpark and right in my element. Moana, I stand by, and I know that forget it. You know, sometimes we like these nice little segues, but like Moana for me, it's the
This is
best
not a
soundtrack. I
segue.
know
This is
every
a
single
tangent,
word.
by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I love Moana. The whole soundtrack for Moana. I will sit there. I could sit there and watch it on my own. I'm happy. I love. That's one of my favorites. So you put them in and you're laughing. But unfortunately, no, that those earlier days ones, the from like the 50s and the
So what are we saying next week? We're leading with our own Disney team. We're picking a
Yes.
Disney team next week.
Picking a
do you
Disney
know
team.
what?
Yep.
It
There's your
maybe not
homework,
next week.
boys. Get your Disney team together.
So
Um,
Little John, Gaston, some of the big ones.
well,
Oh, you
actually,
got
okay, right. There was a
just
question.
Dumbo, right? As your
Can I
front line,
ask?
as your offensive
He'd
line is
surely
the
have to be there.
Dumbo.
I'm gonna say, I want to say, what's the idea? Is it, are we finding players whose names are from Disney films, or are we building a team of Disney
I
characters?
would say building a team of
Building a
Disney
team of
players.
Disney characters.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Okay. I can do this, and that this is gonna be great homework. Now my daughter is now obviously clearly so into the NFL and
Yeah.
American football. Now she's wearing all the Chiefs stuff. This would be the perfect little bit of homework for us to do together. That's
There you go. You got to go back to the classics, and then you're going to have to dig out some of the classics
have
there,
to do. Have to.
because you already know who the offensive line is, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Beast.
I'm now trying to mentally find a space for Eeyore.
Eeyore's
Wreck-It
got to be
Can't
Ralph.
leave
there.
Eeyore out.
Surely Wreck-It Ralph's got to be on that
He's
on the
got to
D
be
line.
he's got to be defensive end, right? He's got to be
D lineman.
D lineman. Yeah. We've
Save it
gone
for
off
next
tangent
week,
now,
lads.
haven't we?
Save it. Save it.
If anyone else has their own Disney
Please,
thoughts, let
we're
us
more
know.
than we're more than welcome
We're
to
quite
build
happy. We're quite happy
come
to
and help us
take.
build a Disney team.
But Maui is my D tackle, by the way. Maui is a D tackle. Throwing that one in there. Anyway, I did want to wrap this episode up with just a little bit of talk. So, as I said earlier in the episode, Notre Dame and USC are having a little bit of a spat. USC. Now, Notre Dame USC, if you are not already familiar with that rivalry, this is a game that's been played every year for over 100 years. This is a staple part of college football and one of, I think, the most, if not the most underrated rivalry in probably all of college football. I think the Red River rivalry also can go down as one of the more underrated ones. But this is a huge rivalry, and USC are debating pulling out of this rivalry and no longer playing as and when the contract between the two teams ends. Now,
They're
obviously,
trying to weasel out. They're
well,
trying to weasel their way out.
I want your thoughts on it, but where we're going to go in the next 4 weeks is actually going to be really interesting because I think we're going to end up, as much as we're trying to talk about the future and build a future, but like next week, we're going to have to go into the history of college football and all the things that have changed. We're going to wrap it up with the heart and the soul of college football and what makes it special and all these rivalries and traditions that may or may not die with a new era of college football. But where I really want to go with this quick question is just kind of, I want to talk about the USC Notre Dame thing and how times are changing. But just, I want you to throw at me a couple of the traditions and a couple of the things that you've come to love over the last couple of years of your time of watching college football. But Nick, I'm going to throw this to you first to talk to us about this Notre Dame USC thing, because I imagine you've spent a lot of time with it in.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks, it's been sort of creating headlines, on the Notre Dame pages and what have you. But if you listen to USC, they're pinning the blame on Notre Dame, and but if you actually look into it, yes, playing the USC probably favors Notre Dame in the case of helping them get a top 4 seed. It's USC are trying to weasel their way out of this long-running fixture. They don't want this game anymore. You can try and blame Notre Dame as much as you want, saying that we're not giving the Trojans enough concessions or whatever. But sorry, Lincoln Riley reckons it's easier for the USC to get to the playoffs if they don't play Notre Dame. Well, sorry, that's not how it works. You know, he's the one that wants to end it because he can't hack the pace. What's the saying? If you can't stand the heat, stay out the kitchen. So if they don't want to play anymore, right, fine. But you don't come pinning it on the other team saying it's not you that doesn't want to play it. This game's been around for a long time. It's bigger than any of the coaches. It's bigger than any of the players, and that doesn't go just for this game. That goes for Fletch, in your case, Michigan, Ohio.
Yeah.
It's bigger than any player. It's bigger than any coach. These games mean a lot to the fans and mean a lot to the college itself. Who is anybody to say I don't want to play this game anymore?
Yeah.
Because
that's what people need to remember. Some of these things, as we just mentioned, the current incumbents are just custodians of what they're currently holding, right? As you say, this game has been played probably for 100 years or whatever else. The current coaches can't sit there and go, blah, 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 I don't want to play it because it's difficult and therefore it makes our lives more tricky. Can we play a softer, easier team?
USC Notre Dame has been in place since 1924, and the
26,
only
wasn't
the
it?
only 24, 26. The only
100
thing that
years.
stopped it being played was the World War Two. It was World War Two and a pandemic. I think you put both of those ahead of a coach who doesn't like it because he
Doesn't
can't
like
win.
it because it means, we're going to lose that game and then we can't win.
No. Notre Dame and USC played their first game in 1926 on December 4th. So yeah, it was 99 years. It'll be the 100th anniversary next year, and it's been played 95 times in total. I mean,
Yeah.
But this is the thing, and I was listening to one of my favorite college football podcasts around today in the Locked On College Football podcast. And one of the things that was put forward in that episode as they were talking about it was that essentially this is Lane Kiffin turning around and saying that after you took USC out of the Pac-12 and after you kind of you get him in on this idea that he's going to be the one to kind of keep USC in the front, and then you go and throw him into the Big Ten, and it's trial by fire now, and you're in a much harder conference with much harder schedules. This is his way of saying, "Yo, chill a little bit, please." But like you say, these are the things these are bigger. These transcend whatever area you are in college football, completely transcend it. And as you say, if a world war and a pandemic, nothing else should be stopping it.
No.
I was just doing a little
Get
bit
out
of
of your own way.
reading up on this game, and apparently it's obviously Nick, you'll know more about it than me, but apparently the origin of the series is quite often recounted as a conversation between wives. Apparently between the head coach at the time, Newt Rockney, and the USC athletic director Gwyn Wilson. Apparently they, their other halves convinced them to take a trip and play the game. So yeah, apparently that's why it all started.
It's the wife's fault.
Basically, I think the other thing is the USC want to play the game at the beginning of the year, whereas Notre Dame are keen to leave it where it is at the end of November.
It's
And
rivalry weekend.
yeah, and that's the point. I don't know whether USC think that gives. I suppose at the beginning of the season, anyone has a good chance of beating anyone in theory. Everyone's in the same valley everyone's in the valley of 0 and 0. But if it has always been a rivalry and it has always been at that weekend, then why are you trying to move it? It goes back to the same point. It's not about you as a coach, you as a, nobody at USC, whether it be the athletic director, whether it be the, you know, the governor or whoever, nobody at USC has the right to turn around and say, we don't want to play this game anymore. But on the flip side of the coin, I won't hide from it. Nobody at Notre Dame has that right either.
Oh no, no,
You
no.
know,
Yeah.
and that's this game belongs. If someone's and I'll use it in my. If someone turned around to me and says, "Right, Manchester City versus Manchester United, we're going to stop that game now, or we're going to take that game abroad and we're going to go and play it in Malaysia." No, you are fucking not. That game
Yeah.
belongs. Game belongs in the city of Manchester, where it stays. You know.
Unless it's a Wembley trip or whatever for
And well, yeah,
or
but
whatever. But
that
I,
you don't go
Plus,
messing
plus
with things that are
I,
meant to
I
be.
if
hated it
if
when it
you
was
get rid of it, then who's going to win the George Shillelagh?
which is the real question in all
It's
of
the
this.
real.
It's the real question.
Who's going to win the George Shillelagh?
And this is why we have
Actually,
Sam,
there's
because
a question.
Sam asks the
Have we
cutthroat
had
question.
have we had the best trophy conversation yet?
No, we have not, but
No,
I would love to have it one day. Soon.
stick it in the
Got
queue
to be
behind the
stick it
Disney
in a
team.
queue behind the miniseries and the Disney team.
Um, I would absolutely love to have that conversation. Um, but what I wanted to ask, and again, like the George Shillelagh, well, how are we pronouncing it?
That
That one, yeah, one of the
that one,
two. I'll
one of
take it.
those. Jill
Um,
Shillelagh, I think. But we'll take it.
but I think it's no, I'm sorry, I've lost my point now. But it's like I say that was it. I was gonna say just on the City United point, I was mad when they took it for a pre-season friendly in America a couple of years ago.
True.
Like, but to stick on like say traditions and rivalries and all that sort of stuff, because actually I want to wrap up, and I'm gonna throw it to you guys to throw me a couple that you kind of come to Dublin this year. Now,
Hmm.
obviously, we are nothing but we are over the moon. We get a game in Dublin, we're buzzing with it, we're happy with it. And out of all the games that I've heard be complained about, I've barely heard any either Iowa State or Kansas State fan complain that this game is in Ireland. But this is Farmageddon. This is also a nearly century-long old tradition of a game that's played every single year that is being taken out of the country and being put into week 0 when it's normally middle of the season or end of the season. It was rivalry weekend last year, and we made the comment of how we're going to end the season as it's going to start with Farmageddon. And this is being played at, and I can see where though in times like this, like we can't complain, and I think I want to stay a bit quiet in terms of if we were to get a bit, oh no, it's only Kansas State, Iowa State. It's only Big 12. It's not a this team. It's not a that team. We need to be damn grateful that we're getting a genuine rivalry game in
Yeah,
Dublin this year, and how lucky we are to get that, to have it taken out of America, to be put in front of our doorstep. We're very
as we
fortunate.
talked about, the college football season isn't as long as the NFL season. So, the fact is that those teams are giving up. I don't know what 1/13 is, and it's probably a 9-10% of their regular season games to go completely the other side of the world. So it's a
Yeah.
massive thing for them to give that up. So and no, I don't think. And the weird thing is the London games. There is a complacency and a set in. Oh, it's London game. Oh, we get the Browns twice. Oh, it's always the Browns. It's always the Jags. Oh, it's so boring to get those. Missing the fact that you know we get regular season games, whereas
Listen,
before we used to get just hideous preseason friendlies, which were absolutely, if you ever
yeah,
had the misfortune to see any of the American Bowls at the old Wembley, were dreadful. Because they weren't an advert for the sport at all, because all you got was the third and fourth string players, and you had no idea what was going on. You went there to see Joe Montana and Dan Marino, and they didn't touch the field, for example. That. So now we've got proper games. So I don't think we're fully invested in the college football Ireland and the college classic, and long may it continue. And by the sounds of it, it definitely has a few years left. But I don't think we can ever become complacent, and we should
No.
never become complacent that
We
we get the odd bad game. How are the schedulers? How are the people going to know it's going to be a bad game a year and a half in advance? But as you say, to get a rivalry to come over here is insane. Absolutely insane.
But I want to come at it from the point of, and as much as we know, most people who listen to this podcast are people who know college football from the UK. And we are knowledgeable people on it. And we, well, you guys are absolutely, but I would say myself, like I'm, as much as we talk about this all the time, I'm not as knowledgeable as so many other people in this space that we get to sit here and talk about college football. That most people, okay, I would expect them to know again who Appalachian State are, and I would expect them to know who the Conference USA and the American Athletic Conference. But if you're asking people who are trying to get into the sport and trying to sort out, you're asking them to know teams other than Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, Tennessee, like teams other than those, you're gonna be far-fetched. So to hear the name Kansas State, Iowa State, if you aren't too into college football, that's going to sound like a disappointing matchup. It's too big to. Hence why I'm coming with the whole like. This is the only complaints I've heard about it are, and I've heard it from people who said, "Oh well, who's playing Dublin this year?" And I've said, and they've gone, "Oh, that sounds a bit boring. When are Georgia coming over?" And but from the States, I've not heard one person complain. In fact, I've seen both Kansas State and Iowa State fans be more than happy to share it, which
and
is
I think what that is,
lovely.
Yeah, and I suppose what we discovered last season when we were lucky enough to go over was that the Florida State fans came en masse for a holiday, en masse, and I think that permeated across, and I think it was visible, and it is now. Let's go to Ireland for a weekend. We all know that there's a distinct link of Irish heritage across the US, and they seem to have an affinity with Ireland, etc. So
more than
Kansas
the Irish
State. More than yeah, almost so. So I would imagine it's something similar where it's being viewed as not losing a rivalry game at home, but almost having the ability to travel, gaining a Dublin weekend or an Ireland trip mixed in with watching their team.
Yeah,
and I can imagine it will be very similar sort of makeup of fans when we go over in August. There'll be a lot of fans who have travelled over from the States.
Yeah, imagine seeing them going, "Oh, cool, holiday." I would imagine that's a part of it. It's like, cool, we get to go visit somewhere new. We get to go do somewhere new. But what I wanted to kind of mention again, I know what I want to throw it to you guys. What are a couple of these traditions and rivalry games that, aside from your own, so I can't, for example, I can't say Michigan, Ohio State. Sam, you can't say the Red River rivalry. We can't throw these in there. What are a couple of the rivalry games that you kind of look for every year, or are there traditions again that you look for each year and enjoy when they pop up?
I quite like the Michigan State one because of the big boy, little boy sort of thing. And you always, in a weird way, want Michigan State to turn over Big Blue. I do, personally. You obviously don't, Fletch, but it's always got that sort of. Yeah, well, some of us do. But I always like that, big boy, little boy sort of thing. Obviously, from us at Florida State, the Gators, is always that thing. But that one I always like to look at, and I always like to, the interstate ones. They're usually completely one-sided. Oregon State, Washington State. They're usually complete blowouts. But every now and again, you just think, oh, just maybe. Army Navy is always a good one because that's just a pure scrap, which happens to have a football game. I think is usually how that game tends.
Have you ever been to the Army Navy rugby game? Jesus. If you're not drinking, you're fighting. It's mental.
It's basically a fight with a rugby game that breaks out every now and again.
A rugby ball somewhere in there.
Somewhere
probably
happens,
popped.
Yeah. It's just a distraction from drinking. Yeah. But yeah, those are the kind of things that I look out for.
I think one that I always look out for, and it's an interesting one. It's the Iron. Is it called the Iron Bowl?
there's an iron,
The
Iron
Iron Bowl
Anvil or
rivalry
something.
is between
Iron,
Alabama and Auburn. It's
yeah.
a really, really nasty rivalry. If you ever get the chance to look it up, really do. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
really nasty rivalry.
They
But
do
again,
not like
that's
each
always
other. Yeah.
an interesting one. Just because of the fact that it's just a very nasty rivalry.
See, for me, I like to take my attitude of liking these localized teams that are close to each other and taking
Mm.
the British attitude of that being a rivalry. You know, you look at like someone like Oregon and Oregon State, they're not too far away from each other.
Yeah.
Not in the case of like you look at say Washington and Washington State, they're literally diagonally opposite
Yeah.
in each end of this state. Whereas, excuse me, Oregon and Oregon State are quite close to each other. So it's kind of like those are the little rivalries I look at, the ones that are really
UCLA,
close together.
UCLA, USC is a good one as well because they are literally like fall over each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it to do? Because Georgia, Florida is a big
Yeah,
one every year 'cause they
it's a
play it at
nasty
like
one.
Hard Rock, don't they, or in
Yeah, it's a
Jacksonville. So
nasty one. Yeah,
it's got a really funny name.
yeah. It's is it the
Which one's
Chapman
that?
was talking about it. Chapman was talking about it this year.
mm,
Florida one. 1 minute, I've got to
no, no, it's not Florida State. It's Georgia, Florida.
In Jacksonville every year, but it's got a
It's the
really funny
world
name.
largest. Yeah, it's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
That's the
Yeah.
one. The world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Yeah, that's the one. I remember Chapman talking about it. Um,
Music festival happens every year in Gainesville.
yeah. My
It's a
other
lovely ceiling you've got there, Sam.
Beautiful,
between that and the
beautiful
feet,
bit of architecting. It's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like Vanderbilt, all right, I can get behind going and throwing goalposts in the river. I can get behind that. But, I don't mind that being a regular thing. Probably have to pay quite a bit out in replacing them every week, but I
Gotta
can
be
get
worth it though,
behind
right?
that.
It's
at the
got to be
fourth
worth
time
it.
I've been beaten this episode. I was about to say Vanderbilt and goalposts. That's a great rivalry.
Nick and traffic cones.
Nick and traffic cones, yeah. Um, there are some brilliant ones though. You've got all the
You've got
derbies.
I was going to say, you got Ole Miss and Mississippi State, the Egg
Yeah.
Bowl, Golden
Yeah.
Egg Bowl.
Golden egg.
And I again, you like some of the ones that are kind of forged through just competition, and they're not necessarily ones like Michigan, Ohio State. You always Most of the ones you get pull up any list of rivalry games, the vast majority are team. Sorry, they are state and state. Like University of and University State. Rivalries, they're basically derbies. That's what it is for the state. But I like the ones that are interstate. I like the ones that kind of cross those boundaries, and that some of them are forged by recent competition. They've ended up playing each other. I like the little Michigan and Alabama have got a little bit of a thing going on at the moment because we played each other a few times over the last few years in big games, and it kind of adds to a little bit of a, well, if I want any piece of success now rests on playing you, and you're in the way of the things that I want. And some of those, like Michigan, Ohio State, but that goes beyond being a derby and just simply being close. That's high competition, and that's high. There's so much that goes into these ones that I just think are excellent. And yeah, I love those ones more than anything because it means more than just to locals. It's probably different, or
Yeah.
to for example, if you turn around and said, "Well, I prefer the Man United and Arsenal rivalry over the Arsenal Tottenham rivalry." Well, if you're from afar and you support neither team, like yeah, you do because it's a competition thing and there too. But actually, the local
You'd
derby
also
does
be
mean that
wrong.
bit more.
You'd also be
Mm.
totally wrong.
You'd also be wrong.
But like I said that, but if you're an actual fan of the team and you're actually from you get the derby rivalry and why that's important. So, if you are in it for the quality of the game, then yeah. But and it's some of the little traditions as well. I want to throw a couple of traditions out there. I know it's a recent tradition, but Penn State's wave,
Yep, to the
the children's hospital
kids. Yeah,
in the
that's
corner.
turn around and wave in the corner. Yeah, that's a nice touch.
Beautiful
That
little tradition. We mentioned at the start of the episode, the Enter Sandman tradition, which
which apparently is in this year in the game. I was hearing.
is
I thought I
actually
read
in.
somewhere. I thought I read somewhere that it was in. Anyway, we sidetrack. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to go and check that. I'm sure I read that somewhere.
Yeah, little traditions like that though, I think they're my favourites by far. Is that it?
But no one else can say that they have an actual longhorn at their stadium, an actual animal who just sits there all game.
Colorado. Don't Colorado run out of buffalo now? And as we mentioned at the beginning, the Indiana Hoosiers are bringing back the bison. So
yeah.
Denver. I mean, I know it's NFL, but Denver have the horse, don't they?
they do ride it. The
they ride
Seminoles.
that
The
horse.
Seminoles have the horse, mate. Don't forget the Seminoles.
Yeah. In honor of their recent form in the game, I hear Ohio State are bringing back cats on the sideline. That I'm gonna say that was, if that one went over your head, then like you're too young to listen to this podcast, then go to bed.
Well, speaking of which, we have
Yes,
managed to somehow.
It's very, very late. Gents, I'm gonna let you go. For those of you who stuck with us all the way through this episode, thank you so much. And why? We don't get it. We appreciate it, but we don't get it. Why have you done it? We will see you next week as we start our mini series on rebuilding college football and doing the new future of college football through the eyes of UK and Ireland based college football media creators, because we know what's best, really, for all of it. We know.
Listen to us. We know what we're talking about.
So we're going to be really excited to bring you this mini series, and over that time, maybe we'll throw in maybe a little video we'll come out with an interview with someone else. Maybe we'll see what we can get, or maybe we will present us in that time a Disney starting offense and defense.
Disney starting lineup. Wow.
We don't know, but in that time again, you just give us a follow on social media. Follow CFB_UK on Twitter or UK_CFB on Instagram for podcast specific updates. Follow AAW Network to just come and talk general football, and then obviously getting on our Discord and come and chat ball with us and life and all those other things. And it leaves me without any hesitation to thank, as always, my three fantastic, wonderful co-hosts, Nick, Sam, and Gary. And I will see you next week as we start our mini series.